Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today, Dylan Lang is joining me again for Spoilers with Friends, and we're going to have a Lin Shaye double feature for you today. Dead End, which was put out in 2002, and Abattoir, which came out in 2016. I had them written down here so I wouldn't forget. And probably everybody, if you've watched horror movies at all, you've seen Lin Shaye on many occasions. She's kind of like Dee Wallace. She shows up in every other horror movie. Usually she's quite delightful, and I've enjoyed her character. So I thought, hey, let's just instead of doing a particular movie, let's do Lin Shaye, in a sense. So we picked a couple of her movies, and Dylan and I will be talking about those. So Dylan, do you want to have an overall impression of Dead End to start off with?
Dead End is a really solid, low budget, early 2000s psychological horror. Maybe leans more thriller than horror. But there's definitely spooky moments. I really loved the look of it. And I thought that most of the cast were enjoyable. The son was a very kind of typical early 2000s horror
Mhm.
character where he's saying a lot of like homophobic things and all sorts of definitely dated material that wouldn't show up nowadays, but and you're kind of just waiting for him to get
Mhm.
his uh but yeah, I liked it a fair amount. I took notes while watching these because I didn't
Okay.
know when we would have the time to record, and so I wanted to make sure that I had stuff written down uh so that I could kind of remember.
Okay.
Uh One of the things is that there is a little bit very briefly there is like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibe because they pick up this bizarre hitchhiker that's holding what you think is a baby and was a baby at one point. When that gets revealed, that was definitely horrifying. But I also took note of a quote that I quite liked near the beginning of the movie. Um, Marilyn Manson is a guy, Dad. Marilyn, a man. Ugh, what is the world coming to?
Mhm. Well, I guess
Um,
he'll find out.
yeah,
So the basic premise of this movie is that every Christmas, this family goes to visit the wife's family, which apparently the husband does not like to do, and is apparently never mentioned until now that he despises her whole family. So this time, for whatever reason, he decides to take a shortcut. Always a good idea in a horror movie, right? So it's after dark. He's taking this unfamiliar road. He falls asleep at the wheel briefly, but they think they've escaped the traffic accident and they continue on, except the road just goes on forever and ever and ever. There's no road signs, there's no exits, there's no houses or businesses. It just goes. And so this, of course, is a little weird.
yeah,
And they eventually find this little cabin to stop at, but it doesn't have a telephone or working telephone or something. And they keep going, and okay, then things will keep happening. But basically, the movie is an endless dark road, and one by one they start getting picked off. And by the time you get to the end, maybe you've figured out what's going on. I don't know if the first time I saw it, if I figured it out or not, but if there's originally four of them in the car with, or five of them, with the father, the mother, their son, their daughter, and the daughter's boyfriend. Boyfriend is the first one to die,
yeah,
and then they it gets up at the end where it's basically the father and the daughter, and it's important for later apparently that he does write a note there toward the end on what he wants to do because he finds out that his daughter's pregnant. Everybody has like some reveal, right? And her reveal is that she's pregnant by the boyfriend, and so he writes down that he wants to be the best grandpa ever or something like that.
yeah,
So that's like his, I guess, character arc journey. He goes from being this like obnoxious guy who just keeps drinking alcohol and driving, to this guy who wants to like clean up and be the best grandpa ever. So but basically that's the overarching part of what's going on in the movie. So any particular more directed comments you want to make, Dylan?
um, I will I did figure out the twist pretty early on, which I will say is maybe like my one major criticism of the movie was that I did find that a bit predictable. Um and if I remember correctly, I think I even wrote down a note saying my prediction is this, and it ended up being right. But I loved Ray Weiss. I know we watched these for Lin Shaye, but uh, I was not expecting to see Ray Weiss from Twin Peaks, and he's
Mhm.
really good in this. Um, I remember also being a little concerned that the daughter character was going to be a lot like Barbara in the original Night of the Living Dead,
Mm.
where she was just going to be catatonic the entire movie. And I was like, oh, I hate when movies do that. So I was glad whenever she started talking and interacting again, because she ended up being, she's kind of the emotional through line for Ray Weiss's character and just the movie as a whole. So I liked her a lot. But yeah, that note that he leaves is definitely um, that was touching. I wasn't expecting to feel as like awe as I did about a horror movie. Really. Um, Also, the like moment that Lin Shaye spoilers, I guess, but like starts touching her like brain or whatever, that got an audible "Gah" reaction from me.
Yeah, there's a couple little things that are kind of squishily bloody. It don't look very real, but it's just kind of like, bleh, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
but
everybody ends up with some kind of a reveal. So the once the boyfriend's dead, the girlfriend, the daughter of the family has, eventually admits that she's pregnant. That's part of why she went catatonic because the father of her baby just died. Right. And so everybody's getting this kind of reveal. My favorite one, though, remember this is spoilers with friends. Do not watch this if you don't want to know what's going on in the movie. When the son dies and Lin Shaye is like, oh, he looked just like his father. And her husband's like, he doesn't look anything like me. And she's like, well, you're not his father, are you? And it's like everybody has something that comes out. And eventually, it turns out that the father actually kind of like precipitated this affair because he worked with the guy who was telling him, oh, at work, well, I'm in love with this married woman and I don't know what to do about it. And apparently, he told him like he should go for it, not knowing it's
yeah,
his own wife that this guy's in love with. And so, yeah, and it turns out his wife has this affair he never finds out about. And then his son is the reproduct of that affair. But then his wife decided not to leave him. And so he's finding that out now on this journey of them getting picked off one by one. And so what happens is when someone dies, you find that out because this hearse comes by, right? And or maybe it's just a big black car, but kind of
it's
hearse like.
yeah,
And they'll see their family member in the back, like pounding on the window, as you can kind of see in the artwork there, the hands on the back window of the car. And so they'll chase the car down, but as soon as they go, as soon as the car's out of sight, it never shows up again, right? It just sort of disappears. So it doesn't matter how fast they drive, they can never catch up with this slow moving black car once it's out of sight. And then someone else will die, and here comes the black car rolling by again with someone new in the back seat pounding on the window.
yeah,
So we keep seeing them one by one being taken away and going off to who knows where. Whereas but no matter how far they drive down this road again, there's just nothing. So at some point they decide to abandon the car. I thought this was kind of cool in the horror movie way where things get confusing, sort of the Blair Witch sort of stuff where you're wandering through the woods, you keep ending up at the same spot, right?
yeah,
But here they just get off on the right side of the road and they're hiking through the woods and they eventually see a light and they go, oh, good, we found civilization. So they run to the light and it turns out it's their car, but now they're approaching it from the left side. And the father's like, but if we'd turned around, we would have come back on the same side of the woods that we went into the woods, right? We'd be on the other side of the car. How do we end up over here? So they're now in this sort of weird, twisty geography that doesn't make any sense, right? It just goes and it kind of loops in on itself, apparently. So if you don't know they're dead by now, you probably figured it out that, yeah, they died in that car accident. They didn't really avoid it, they died there. So, and that the hitchhiker they picked up was the woman they struck and killed with the car. Her,
yeah,
her baby were part of this whole accident. They hit her car, she died, her baby died. Everybody dies except for the daughter. So at some point toward the end now, she's like the only person left because she's the only person this hearse-like car isn't going to pick up, right? Because she isn't dead. And then the movie moves to like the real world where she is waking up in the hospital after being taken to the emergency department. Um, have to tell her that she's the only survivor of this car accident. And then when we go out into the parking lot, the doctor, her car won't start. And this guy in a big black car drives up and says, "Hey, do you want a lift?" And she says, "Oh, this is an interesting car." He's like, "Yeah, I'm a collector." And she gets in the car and drives off with him. Um, but meanwhile, it's the people cleaning up the accident. The very last scene then is the people clean up the accident scene, all the car crumbs. And they come across the note and open it up and it says, like, "I want to be the best grandpa ever." And it's like, since he didn't write that till after he'd been dead for some time, right? When did that note get written? So,
Yeah.
so we have more of this like recursive, where did this time funkiness going on? Um, and I don't know what we're supposed to assume about the dude in the car when he drives off with the doctor that I guess they're just going for coffee, you know? I
Maybe.
mean, it's hard to say. Is he death? Is he just like the hearse driver of death? But she's not dead, right?
Yeah.
So maybe he during the daylight hours just, goes around and gives people rides. I don't know what we're supposed to take off from that.
Yeah. There's some of the ending is a little bit like, okay, that's a little too ambiguous and weird, maybe. But uh yeah, because you almost there's almost maybe like a vibe that like what we're seeing on the road is like isn't necessarily it's like each person as they die they get taken away like in the real world I guess you could say like maybe they didn't all die at once, it was like these people all died in that order through whatever means, and maybe there's some supernatural reason, be it that she's just pregnant or something, that they kept the daughter alive. Whatever forces there may be that are kind of almost cursing Ray Wise specifically. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting movie. I liked it a lot.
It's
The
fun.
yeah, fun is a good description for it. Um, which is funny since it's like also like it's kind of heavy in concept sometimes. Like some of the stuff is a little dark, but they don't try to lean too depressing with it.
Yeah, it's a little bit gory at times, a little bit dark at times, but mostly it's just a kind of dark humor. That's this big thread through there. So, people keep saying things that are just kind of funny. And then Lin Shaye's character just kind of goes nuts. I can't remember, it's after the son dies. They finally had to put the son in the car. She won't leave his body behind, right? So
Yeah.
he's in the back and she's wondering like if he's cold or if he needs something or something. And
Yeah.
eventually she like just throws herself out of the car, and kind of becomes roadkill in a
She
sense. And
shoots Ray Wise in the leg with a
she
shotgun.
shoots him in the leg. I mean, it's just like she's crazy, right? She just goes nuts, and she's now that she's like missing the back half of her head. Then, as Dylan said, she's touching her brain, and then she collapses, and then I think they put her in the car. Then so now they got two dead people in the car,
Yeah.
and then it's just the father and the daughter driving along with these two dead people, one in the back seat, one in the trunk, or I guess it's like a station wagon kind of thing. They're kind of sitting in the hatchback kind of part of it, but um, yeah, and then eventually we get to the hospital where it turns out, oh yeah, people who are dead now on the road, they really were dead from the time of the auto accident. So, or perhaps shortly thereafter, maybe they were picked up at this, as you said, in that order. Maybe they died in that order. We don't know. And that would kind of explain, I guess, why the woman and the baby are dead to begin with, that since they hit them head on.
Yeah.
So they were probably the first ones to die. But yeah, it's kind of just like this weird little fun movie with a sort of dark humor in it. So I
And it's
definitely
not
would rec.
super popular either. Like
Hmm.
it's like I feel like it you would maybe more people would have seen it if it had been given like a wider release whenever it came out, but I think it's like two French directors.
Hmm.
Um and yeah, I it's a lot of fun and I feel like maybe it's just because of Ray Wise, but I feel like if you are a fan of like Twin Peaks and like David Lynch, there's some level of enjoyment to be had because it is like a bunch of kind of weird, specific characters and character actors doing weird stuff.
Hmm.
um,
In this sort of
so
creepy environment, this
yeah,
endless dark road, this weird black car that's never can never catch up to, and Yeah. And their car doesn't run out of gas for a really, really, really long time. We're like, at some point they're going to run out of gas, right? But they just keep driving and driving and driving and driving for hours and hours. Eventually, the car does kind of putter to a stop. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of if you kind of like that kind of weird dark humor kind of thing, then I would definitely say watch this movie. So how many creepy doll heads would you give this 1 out of 5?
I would give it again. I liked it. I would give it like a 3.5 creepy doll heads out of 5.
Okay.
I don't think it's like a masterpiece or anything. It's just a fun time.
Okay, so let's move forward to 2016. We have Abattoir, also with Lin Shaye in a supporting role. Um, and in this one, basically, our main character is she wants to be a newspaper reporter, and she is a newspaper reporter, but all she's allowed to report on is real estate. And she really wants to be like a crime reporter, right? She wants to graduate to that gumshoe kind of I'm tracking down murderers kind of, part. And her editor won't let her. He keeps saying, "You're do real estate," which turns out to be a little helpful when her sister, her brother-in-law, and her nephew are all killed by a serial killer kind of person who just sits there and waits for the police to pick him up. He and excuse me, and the real estate comes in where her sister's house sells very quickly by some shady means that she don't seem quite ethical or legal. And she knows this because she writes a lot of real estate stories. But other people might not notice that this kind of deal happened on the sly and it maybe wasn't all up and up. But she does because that's her specialty and her job. And so she finds out who the realtor was. She goes and quizzes him on how did this happen, like this isn't legal or right or whatever. And he gives her the down low and well, so and so bought it or whatever. And so that's how launches her then to try to figure out what happened to her sister and the family. But the weirdest thing is not that there was a murder or that the murderer just sat around waiting for someone to pick him up or that the real estate deal was strange. It's that when she goes back to the house, the room where the murder took place is gone. Like literally someone has come and taken that room down to the studs. Anything that was in that room, the walls, the floors, the toys, the bed, because it was the kid's bedroom, I think. It's just not there anymore. The whole side of the house is missing. It's like someone's come in from the side and taken off the siding and then this removed everything, which is pretty weird, right? And so she finds there's been other times this has happened where there's a real shady real estate deal and then a room in the house goes missing. So she gets to combine crime and real estate and goes off to try to solve what's going on. So some initial thoughts, Dylan?
Initial thoughts is that that premise is really cool. Um, I think the main actress did a very good job as well. She was very compelling to watch, and I thought that just she was acting circles around like the male counterpart that she had. Um, I wish Lin Shaye was in it a little bit more because her scene is maybe the best scene in the movie. Otherwise, I didn't super enjoy this one. Uh, I thought that it was a little convoluted and took too long to get to its best ideas.
Mhm.
Um, the like noir soap opera stuff that the
Mm-hmm.
the movie has is very in the wheelhouse for the director. He did the second, third, fourth, and ninth Saw films. Um, ninth with like an asterisk. It was a weird spinoff.
Mm-hmm.
And that series is all about like convoluted soap opera. Everything's told out of order. And this is a little bit more straightforward, but it still definitely leans into that. It loves its twists. And that's kind of almost to the detriment of the movie because again, the best ideas of the movie are kind of in like the final act, where it's revealed what's going on with that room and how it's being tied into this other house of just rooms where horrible murders have happened. Um,
Yeah, we're piecing it together like puzzle pieces in the woods.
yeah. Eh, and I wish that like the entire movie took place in that house and was more of just like maybe it would have been more generic as like a haunted house thriller or something, but I don't know. I would have liked that.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I think the noir part with the boyfriend who ex-husband, I can't even remember what he is now, the male lead didn't fit really. He came across with like I'm a 1940s Sam Spade gumshoe kind of character, and you're like,
yeah.
it's not the 1940s anymore, dude. I mean, what are we trying to?
Well, they both in the very first scene of the movie were dressed like they were in like the 50s. It was weird. I didn't understand that. I was like, "Oh, this is a period piece." And then like the movie keeps going and it's not at all. I was
No.
like, "Why did she have her hair like that? Why was he dressed like that? What's going on?"
Yeah, the other thing that becomes annoying very quickly is that when characters are presented with options, they always choose a stupid one, which is an old horror movie trope, which I thought we'd kind of gotten away from. But in this particular movie, they really lean into that really heavily. So it reminds me of the Saturday Night Live skit where the like two teenagers are on a couch and they hear something in the basement, and one of them says, "Oh, we should check it out." And I was like, "Oh, you know what? But if we were in a horror movie, there'd be like a serial killer down there. We should like call for some help." And I'm like, "Yeah, but my parents don't know you're over. I'll get in trouble." But you know, if we were in a horror movie, we'd die, right? So I call over the neighbor, and the neighbor's like, "Here's the sounds." He's like, "Well, you know, I'll go down and check it out. But you know, if this is a horror movie, there'd be a serial killer down there. So I'll call the police." And like the police comes over, and then the police here, and then they were like, "Well, I'll go down there." Well, you know what? If this is a horror movie, I die. I need some backup. And so by the time there's like 50 people in the house between the police and the neighbors and the original two teenagers or whatever, they all like troop down to the basement. And yes, there's a serial killer down there, and they manage to capture him, and no one dies. And in this movie, the thing they're spoofing is exactly what they do. You could do this and probably die, or this and just go home and live. I'm going to choose the death part. And then two scenes later, here's your another choice. Well, I'm going to choose the one's going to be stupid. And I'm going to and it's the main character just keeps doing the stupidest thing. She's warned to leave town by everybody, including the sheriff, who like pulls her over before she even gets to town and tells her, "Turn around right now. You don't want to go to this town." Okay, the first time, maybe she goes into town, right? And she meets a sheriff again, who's like, "Get to leave town." She meets a person at the like local library or historical society who's like trying to get her to leave town. Everybody's talking about. She meets Lin Shaye's character, who originally tells her, "You need to leave town," and she doesn't. I'm not sure why they tow her car, because it's going to be harder for her to leave town once they tow her car, and her car does get towed. So you're like, okay, you want her to leave town, and you've removed her transportation, but whatever. Okay, but every time she gets an option, you could escape now, because then the boyfriend shows up. He has a car, right? You could leave, and they don't. And then later, it's like, okay, we're a little bit more danger, but we could still leave, and they don't, right? And so then finally they get back to the sheriff, who keeps telling them to leave, but apparently no one else liked that idea. He kept warning them away. So then he dies too. You're like, oh, they killed their own sheriff because he kept telling them to leave. So every time that they could walk out scratch free and just go, they don't. And it's not just once or twice or 15 or 20 times. It's like 30, 40 times. I don't know. I didn't count. But after a while, you're like, people, get with the program. You should leave this town, right? And they never do. And they never, I
There's
guess they never will.
there's a moment where the villain literally tells them like, "I gave both of you every opportunity to get out of here, but you chose to stay." So I guess the movie at least acknowledges that they acted dumb, um, which I'll always give props for. If you have characters acting dumb, at least acknowledge it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it certainly is like to an extent of like I don't think any normal person would make these decisions. Like,
Yeah. I mean, everyone's being unfriendly. Like your cell phone doesn't work, right? I mean, she can't call for help. There's, there's just no reason to be in this town, at this point, really. It's not like you can bring your sister back. She is dead, right? But what the folks live it on Lin Shaye, I don't get Lin Shaye's character. Now, in the overall, I kind of liked the movie. I've watched it a couple of times. I necessarily wouldn't recommend it too highly, but it's okay. I thought it was watchable. Um, well, mostly because these weird ideas like taking the rooms from the house and building this weird house in the woods kind of thing were at least intriguing. I don't feel like they ever gelled, and then we actually got like a story out of it, like a
Yeah.
we. But Lin Shaye's character boggles my mind because first the main character, besides trying to solve her sister's murder, she's been on this quest to find her birth mother. She and her sister were adopted. And it turns out this town where all this is happening was where she was born and her birth mother must be. Okay. And not really a coincidence because the people from this town are trying to, I guess, get them back, right? So it's not like, oh, what a weird coincidence that this also all happened in the town where she was born. No, not really. But they were targeted. So she goes back to the town. She meets Lin Shaye, who's living in the house where her mother supposedly lived, saying, oh, yeah, sorry, dear, your mother died 30 years ago. I bought the house from her shortly before she died. But then, of course, it turns out Lin Shaye really is her mother. Okay. Um, and this is where I started just kind of like scratching my head at the movie because the backstory is that this dude came to town, like his wife and his daughter died. They're in hell. He's been to hell and came back. And now he's discovered that if he could build this weird murder house in the woods and get a bunch of people to like sacrifice their own kids for some reason, that he can go back to hell and rescue his wife and daughter and bring them back. I'm thinking that's what's going on. It gets confusing. I don't understand why anyone would sign up for that. I mean, I understand why he wants his family back. I don't understand why I would sacrifice my family so that he could get his family back, right? Because now I'm going to miss my kid, right? I mean, why would I say, here, have my child so you can get yours back? That makes no sense to me, right? I'm not even like offer up my hamster. I'm like, no, it's mine. You're not taking this little life because you want your kid back. I'm sorry your kid died, but it has nothing to do with me, and certainly nothing to do with my hamster, right? So I'm certainly not home turning over my child. And
Yeah.
so this whole town is kind of cooperating. There's even this like thing in the woods where people have hung things from the trees saying I'm offering my child because of blah blah blah. And they're like making this promise and written these promises out that I guess that they then will have to fulfill. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
So I don't know, your
Like, yeah,
thoughts?
I agree that like the whole town, he doesn't give a good enough reason for why the whole town is working with him and like agreeing to this. I thought there was maybe something where it was like the people were getting something out of it, like longer life or like fixing medical conditions. Maybe I'm just making that up so that the plot makes more sense.
It was
But
hard to follow, so they may have said something online that kind of slipped by. I don't know, because they do see him like resurrect a dead person or something. It's an old film,
yeah,
but it's still confusing as to what actually happened in that film and why everyone was like suddenly, here, have my child, kill them.
yeah. Because also it's like, yeah, why like sure, you can bring people back if you kill a kid or something, but like, who in your life would you bring back for to sacrifice your own kid? Like, I don't, because if it's like, oh, I have this other kid who died tragically, I don't know, that's playing favorites, and that's kind of messed up. Like, yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But yeah, I don't even have like a butt to that. Like,
Yes.
I
So
thought,
so when we get to the end, it's just kind of like it's this interesting idea. Maybe you should have thought about it a while longer. Kind
yeah.
of kind of try to pull it together.
I thought the villain, like his performance was kind of fun. It was very kind of typical, like evil old cult leader, but like I think he brought more to the character than the what was in the script, if that makes any sense.
Hmm.
Because again, there's nothing there. He just wants his daughter back, I guess, but in theory that makes him like a sympathetic villain, but I don't know, there's like nothing to really work with or with him. I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah, and I can't remember the whole how he got to hell and came back. Is that and because now he's like 100 something years old or
Yeah,
more, maybe like 200 years old. Like I don't remember if I'm again because it's kind of a confusing movie. How long ago it was that his daughter's wife died? I think it was maybe the 1800s. Am I right remembering that correctly? It's been a long time. He's been planning this for a long time.
yeah,
By the time this main character and her sister were born, and Lin Shaye promises to give them up. It's not new. So he at least is really long lived. If no one else, I don't know.
And he even says something like he's been to hell before. It's if the ex boyfriend, husband, whatever, like shot him, it would be more of just an inconvenience. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, then really there's no stakes for you here. If you're always going to end up coming back, you can figure something out to bring your daughter and wife back. You've been doing it for 100 years now. What's the end game? Like when why is right now when you have to be doing it? Like I don't know.
Yeah, there are very confusing things about this. The more this movie goes along, the stupider the main characters are, and the more convoluted the ideas get. So so I know we're sounding kind of down on this movie, and we are kind of. I just think it was an interesting idea. That's why I asked Dylan to watch it because I'm like, because the whole taking the rooms out of the houses, I'd never seen anything like
Yeah.
that before. And then building this weird murder house in the woods where he just like takes all these rooms where murders have occurred and like kind of pastes them together. So you have this like house of nothing but murder rooms, you know?
Yeah, that is an original idea. That's really cool. Like I do have to give that props for that specifically. Um and I even it was definitely like lower budget effects, but like whenever they've got the ghosts all in the different rooms at like the very climax of the movie, I
Hmm.
thought that was all pretty cool as well. Um, but again, they try to treat this like ending as like a tragedy that you just don't connect to. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
not
because
connected to the characters at all. All of them have weird, confusing motivations. So there's not even like a good for the villain. Like there's nothing. Like
at the end, doesn't like Lin Shaye kill her own daughter, thus fulfilling her promise? And then the that opens the door to hell. That was enough deaths or whatever. So like this stairwell that goes down like opens up, and then like he like smiles at her, and she's like smiling and waving to him like, okay, go get your daughter. And he goes off down these steps, and that's kind of like the end of the movie. And you're like, she seems awfully happy to have killed her own kid. Then watch this dude like totter off to hell to find his kid. You're like, that doesn't seem. It just as an ending was like, huh?
you
You
needed
know.
to like sell him as like a cult leader a little bit better, where like he was maybe promising them like an eternal afterlife or something. Like they needed something.
Or even if Lin Shaye's character, like at the end, just decided, no, no, I know I promised, right? And so instead of killing her daughter, like maybe kills herself or something, says, no, I'll never kill my child. And then here, and she shoots through, and that's another death, and maybe that's enough. And he's like, well, okay, Miss Reporter. And then maybe he kills the reporter. I don't know, because I know there's a way for her to get out of this. But, um, if there was something a little more to human like emotions there toward the end, we're like to get you to draw you in, like, oh my gosh, is she gonna kill her kid? Oh no, but instead it's like, oh yeah, she kills her child, she waves the bad guy off, he goes on to hell, it's all good, you're like,
Yeah.
so yeah. Okay, so how many creepy doll heads would you give Abattoir?
Like I would probably give it like two. That's what I give movies where it's like I don't think it's very good, but it has enough cool things that I don't totally regret watching it.
Hmm.
Um my rating system out of 5 is a little harsh sometimes, I feel like, but not everything can be a 5 star, even if
Yeah.
you do love it. So
All right, so dead end, 3.5 or creepy doll heads. Definitely a fun time if you just kind of like weird, quirky, dark humor and something slightly creepy and just a tiny bit gory. And then 2 creepy doll heads or abattoir, where there's some really cool ideas that just never really quite gel into a story that makes much sense anyway. So those are our movies for today, and thank you to Lin Shaye for having a long and interesting career. We've been in a bunch of different movies. And I don't know what we'll do for next time, but we'll let you know. And I appreciate you being here, Dylan. Any final thoughts you want to give?
I appreciate being here.
Okay.
Had a good time.
All right. Well, thanks very much again, and we'll see you guys next time. Remember to press like and subscribe, and that little bell notification to tell you when I upload more videos. And we'll see you next time. Bye bye.